Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Happy Victory Monday. Here's your flash briefing for the week of January 22nd. City Council will meet for a regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter. It breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. The design of both the Douglas Street Improvements Project and the Olive and Orchard Street Stormwater Improvements Project are now available for public viewing online. View project plans, exhibits, and make comments now through February 5th. Visit cityofls.net. Stay connected with the city. We have several email newsletters to keep you informed about everything going on in Lee Summit. The Council Debrief recaps City Council meetings. The City Portal has the latest news and information about the city, and the Flyover is your one-stop shop for airport news. You can subscribe to all of them on the city's website. And celebrate the winter season by enjoying some blowout deals and winter-themed specials at participating businesses in downtown Lee Summit this Saturday for Shovel the Sidewalk event. Find a full list of participating businesses at downtownls.org. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Well, so for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook. Just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station, and the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better, and that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we had doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care in the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee's Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee's Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
It's member level. Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, Ryan. Thank you. Is there any indicator that shows, are we supporting a need?
You know, they talk about like gym rats, kids that grew up with their dads that were coaches. Like I was a city hall rat. My dad, Tom Lovell, was hired as the Parks Administrator in 1978 and spent 40 years in public service here in Lee's Summit. I would go up on the weekends when he was working, and I'd run around and play and do things, and I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but I just knew that was part of our weekend routine some days, was to go up and hang out at City Hall. Being part of a city from a young age to now in my adult life, you reap so many benefits from that. The people you know, you care more for something that you've been a part of. My wife and I knew we wanted to raise a family. Just trying to find a community that we thought we could raise our children in, that was good to me. And it just felt like the right move as we were deciding on a city to come back to. Fortunate to have started a business in 2018. I founded Level Insurance Group, and we are a business insurance brokerage. So we help businesses procure insurance. Decided to throw our flag in the ground here in Lee's Summit, and it's grown. I also have this passion for learning and curiosity, and I started a podcast series. So I really enjoy this opportunity where I sit down with business owners and tell their story and get this out to other people in hopes that maybe it betters their life and gives them some inspiration or something. It's going to be a really exciting time, and obviously this city's in my blood. My dad's been a part of it for a long time, so I'm really excited. Thank you all. A lot of people would say I was crazy, right? So why do you throw your hand up and subject yourself to going into city politics? I think, especially as I've gotten older, I just felt, maybe a civic duty, like a responsibility to say, hey, this city's been great to me. Here's a way that I can give back and take some of my skills and put them to work for the people of this city. I wanted to bring a different, maybe way of thinking and take some of my business acumen and see areas that it may apply to how we develop and grow this community and just give a different perspective. One of our biggest challenges, but also one of our biggest opportunities, is how do we develop and grow this community? We don't want to grow too fast, but we want to grow at a pace that helps support, who and what we are as a community. So, we've got a lot of opportunities, whether that be through development or parks. We've got a lot of land coming on board. So I just think it's important, it's a challenge, but it's also our greatest opportunity. And so we just got to be smart how we do that. It's just asking some different questions. I'm one that I'm not contrarian for contrarian's sake. What I am is someone will tell me something, and then I want to get to that position with them by just asking thoughtful questions along the way. And then if I can get there, then I feel like we've answered everything we can to move that forward, versus, hey, here's kind of how we've done it. I'm never this is how we do it, this is how we've always done it, and this is how we'll continue to do it. Office of Council Member for District 2. All of my practical experience has put me in this position to serve, and I just raised my hand and said I want to do that. For which I was elected on April 5th, 2022. I feel this obligation to carry this legacy that my dad did, my family did, and then giving my kids an environment to grow up in that makes them want to come back. My kids have started rec sports through the Parks and Recreation system, and I'm watching them play soccer on this sport field that, my dad helped develop. And my dad's sitting there with me, right? That's the stuff that really matters in life.
call to order the Lee Summit Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, January 25th, 2024. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mark Kitchens. Cinda Rader.
Present.
Jake Lovelace.
Present.
Barth. Donnie Funk.
Present.
Terry Trafton. Tanya Jonna Ford.
Present.
Randy Benbrook.
Present.
Chip Chizinski.
Present. Thank you. We are going to do a little agenda management, and to make it simple, we are going to go from item C to item B to item A. So we're going to go backwards on our public hearing agenda. So I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Chair, I'd like to approve the agenda as amended.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote on approval of the agenda, please?
Cinda Rader.
Aye.
Jake Lovelace.
Yes.
Donnie Funk.
Yes.
Tanya Jonna Ford.
Yes.
Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
Chip Chizinski.
Yes. Thank you. This is our section for public comments and for anything pertaining to the business of the Planning Commission outside of any of the hearings tonight. None. Staff, we didn't get any public, okay. So we'll move on to item number 5, approval of consent agenda. The consent agenda has one item. That's item A, approval of the January 11th, 2024 Planning Commission Action Report. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion and second. Could I get a vote on approval of consent agenda?
Cinda Rader.
Aye.
Jake Lovelace.
Yes.
Donnie Funk.
Yes.
Tanya Jonna Ford.
Yes.
Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
Yes. And the consent agenda has been approved. Item number C on our, before I jump into that, I think. Doing a little management here of myself. So we will open up item C, application PL 2023-327, special use permit for automotive repair, Priority Auto Repair, 1020 Southeast Hamlin Road, Sam Giovanni, applicant. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony on this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Does the applicant have a presentation, or are we moving to staff? Either one works best for you. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Sam DiGiovanni, 1020 Southeast Hamlin Road in Lee Summit, Missouri, 64081.
Anything you want to add for this, or just move to staff's presentation?
Just wanted to say I'm own several businesses here in Lee Summit. Been a business owner for about 15 years in Lee Summit. This will be my third business, and just looking forward to getting it going.
Thank you.
I'll move to staff at this time, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Hey, good evening, Commissioner. Shannon McGuire, staff senior planner. Please enter the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 14.
Exhibits 1 through 14 noted and entered into the record.
All right, before you today, the application is for a special use permit to operate a major automotive repair facility, and they are requesting a 10-year duration for that special use permit. The applicant is currently operating a minor automotive repair from the site, and I'll go into further detail of the differences between that here later in my presentation. As you can see from the photo on the screen, the properties to the north, west, and south are all zoned PI. And the property across the street, across Hamlin there, is zoned PMIX. And there's some CP2 there kind of northeast of the site. The Ignite Comprehensive Plan does promote various strategies to build long-term economic prosperity and resiliency in our city's economy. One of those established goals to help that happen in that comp plan is to stimulate continued economic development, investment, and reinvestment by the private sector. This subject application does meet that particular goal with the applicant's proposed investment in our community. The site plan, as you can see here, it is a small site. The overall site is about 0.35 acres. There is an existing 4,750 square foot building there, and that building was constructed in 1986, so it's been there for quite a while. Currently, the applicant, like I said, is operating that minor automotive repair business from that location. Again, the UDO does make a distinction between the major and the minor. Both uses are allowed in the PI zoning district. However, minor is allowed with conditions where the major requires that special use permit. So minor is your minor stuff, your oil changes, tire changes, that kind of stuff. Major is going to be the major automotive, replacing major systems, engine overhauls, transmission work, that kind of stuff. All right, this is a couple photos of the existing building. The existing building is metal with some masonry wainscoting there. At this time, there are no exterior renovations proposed by the applicant. And just some photos of the surrounding area. The two on the right and the one in the middle there are the closest on the same street, kind of located in that same little development. You got Camp Bow Wow and some other automotive type uses and business in there. Across Hamblin, we have the Home Depot site as well as the Aldi site. The applicant did host a neighborhood meeting. The neighborhood meeting was hosted on December 27th, and no one showed up. So there are no notes to report from that neighborhood meeting. So with that, with the conditions of approval as outlined on the screen and in the staff letter, the application does meet the goals of the Ignite Comprehensive Plan and the requirements of the UDO and the Design and Construction Manual. And that'll conclude my presentation. I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Shannon. We have any questions from the public on this application? I see none. I will move to the commission for questions. Commissioner Tzinski, you want to start down there? Any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Benbrook?
Yeah, just one. All the storage tanks for lubricants, things like that that are being recycled, are those required to be indoors?
He can have outdoor storage as long as it's screened from view and is located behind the building. At this time, he is not proposing any exterior storage.
Thank you. That's all I had, Chair. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Loveless.
It looks like there were some relatively recent exterior improvements done on the building. So I'm looking at an image from 21, and it doesn't look the same. And I see some, more recent signage and so forth that was put on there. Do we have an idea of when the building was most recently improved?
I can defer that to the applicant, and he can probably speak better to that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the only renovation that was done was the paint. The owner of the building, at least the building, he just painted the exterior of the building.
Okay.
That was it. There was no construction.
Are there any other exterior improvements that you see, particularly anything that's facing on Hamlin there?
No. Well, other than my sign being put up and be it painted, that's it. He did redo the lot in there. That was in the lease. He repaved the lot.
Okay.
Other than that, he painted the building. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing's been done to the inside. It's the same, so.
Commissioner Rader?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon, I know we've got a topic here between a couple of different things. So a major and a minor repair center, can you give some more detailed definition of automotive vehicle repairs? So a major would have to be inside, correct?
Correct. All repairs will have to be inside. The big difference, and if you give me a second here, I'll get to the specific verbatim definition from the UDO for you. So a minor automobile repair is defined as the use of the building for replacement, repair, or of any automobile part that does not require removal of the engine, head or pan, engine, transmission, differential, but maybe include incidental body work, so kind of the dentless dent repair or paintless dent repair type stuff, remove fender work, dent repair, minor painting and upholstery services, muffler replacement, brake service, lube, oil service, glass installation and replacement are all considered minor. When we go to majors is defined is repair of automotive bodies or major mechanical work, straightening of body parts, painting, welding, including the storage of automobiles not in an operable status. It's your light stuff that most homeowners might be able to do in their own home versus the major stuff and the major components would kick it into that major.
And this SUP would not allow them to sell cars on this lot, correct?
Correct, no sales.
Anything else from the commission? I will close the public hearing and open up for discussion. Commissioner Tuzinski, anything to discuss?
At this time.
Mr. Benbrook?
No further discussion from me, thank you.
No discussion points. Thank you, Chair.
No, it looks like there've been some nice landscaping updates that had happened, the paint, so all those different things I like to see happen with the new SUP. Appreciate the landlord or the future tenant updating all those different things. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rader. You want to lead us off into a motion here?
Chair, I moved for recommendation of approval of application number PL 2023-327, special use permit for major automotive repair, Priority Auto Repair, 1020 Southeast Hamlin Road, Sam DiGiovanni, applicant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Could I get a vote on this application?
Linda Rader,
Aye.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Randy Benbrook,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval. Thank you. We will move backwards on our agenda to item B, and we will open up application PL 2023-319, preliminary development plan, Outlaw Harley Davidson, 3100 Northeast Carnage Drive, Engineering Solutions LLC applicant. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Matt, could you state your name and address for the record,
Will do.
please?
Matt Slish, Engineering Solutions, 50 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. With me tonight, I got some help. I have Rick Worth, who is the owner-operator of the Harley Davidson, if we got questions on that side. And then I got Mike Atchison, who's the overall developer of the project, so of the overall development. So if we have questions going back beyond our time of memory, we can assist. So we come tonight to talk about the south end of Chapel Ridge. So down there at Strother and Ralph Powell, northeast corner, there will be one remnant piece that will remain that is owned by the adjacent medical office user that we anticipate will build an additional building at some point. We've done some layout and pieces for it at this time, though, so that'll be the one kind of vacant piece down in that area. Westerly side, just kind of orient you, is that Strother luxury garages we did a year or so ago that we are eagerly anticipating starting in the very near future. To the north side of that then is the Greens at Wood Chapel now. It's the apartment project that began last year and is starting construction again back this spring of starting to develop that area. So obviously a lot of excitement happening on that end of town. On the south side then, you've got the new K1 Speed, Frontier Justice, the trampoline facility, and a number of other areas that are continuing to develop. So essentially our site is the 3.8 acres that sits directly at that corner on the site. The site is zoned CP2, which I just kind of gave you the pullout of the CP2 zoning, showing that it's a full range of retail and office developments serving the general need of the community. showing you down here, this is a pullout from the permitted uses in your UDO, identifying that motorcycle sales, rental, and service with no outdoor display is allowed in a CP2 zoning by right. So in kind of conversations you were just kind of having or other pieces of it, automotive sales, boat sales, those are something that would take us SUP because we're going to have a lot of outdoor storage of the sale item. Harley Davidson, while they may bring a motorcycle out every once in a while to display, it goes back in every day. So it'd be similar to what you see like at a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a grocery store where they have certain things that sit out on their front sidewalk, kind of just as appealing as you walk in, but no real outdoor storage or outdoor sales, as bikes will be moving around just to kind of show product as it kind of works on that side. Then we start talking about automotive repair. So again, like you were just talking, major automotive repair, minor automotive repair, that's something that would take a SUP. In this situation, a motorcycle, obviously, I don't personally own one. I'm sure everyone has seen one. They're relatively accessible in all actions. So they're not going to do any body work. There's really nothing to work on in the body. Major automotive repair or engine repair on that thing is relatively simple. The engine block sits there and they can take care of it, but there's no real heavy lifting on something like that on a motorcycle goes. So that's why a motorcycle sales and service center works in a CP2 zoning district, is because we're not really doing any of those functions that would classify as outdoor sales or classify as a full automotive repair type setting. The Ignite comp plan again shows this area is continuing to be commercial in that area. I went back and pulled the 2005 map and plan that Mike worked on to get this area approved, and what you'll see is we've kind of highlighted the area in yellow, and then in the next slides as we go in blue where the residential and commercial breakouts were. At that point there wasn't a PMIC zoning, so CP2 was our zoning designation for the overall, and we've had that conversation on prior applications. But as you start to look in there, there's a good mixture of retail spaces, food places, office places. This is the north third. This then would be kind of the middle portion of it. The blue starts to show up where residential began on the kind of the west side. And then again, on the easterly side of the development, it's all just kind of zoned as a CP2 mixed use. Mike has done a great job over time of developing different uses, and I'll show you a slide here shortly of what that is. As we go down to the south end, then you kind of see the end of the piece. Our parcels are these two on the southerly end of the site. And this kind of gives a breakdown of what was intended on that 2005 approval. So you start to see in there, there's a certain number of apartment setups and pieces of it, generally looking at around 400 units of apartments. Well, with the apartments that were previously there, the townhomes that have been done, and the apartments that are being proposed there, the residential number actually kicked up a little bit in the overall development. And as you start to look at the office commercial sites that were pushed on sides, they were proposed about 224,000 square feet of office space or commercial space out on that site. I didn't go back in and specifically count each one of them, but generally it's kind of falling in that kind of category of uses. So now you kind of see what then ended up developing. From the original 2005 plan, you can see that Ralph Powell did develop a corridor of relatively commercial type uses. I went through and tried to break it into three types of designations. So a commercial that is kind of customer-driven retail, so that'd be the green ideas. That would be your C-stores, your grocery stores, your price choppers, all the pieces. And as tends to be with commercial development, those tended to be and want to be on the edges. So as you see up on the north end where Woods Chapel is, that's the grocery store, that's the Sonic, that's the strip center that has a number of different pieces on it. And again, we're starting to see it on the south side where Struther is, where the C-store went in. The luxury garage guy goes in, and then that's why we're proposing the Harley Davidson. It's a highly traveled corner, very visible from the pieces of it, allowing these internal commercial uses to maintain. We then went in and identified purple, which is kind of what we thought is the medical offices, the law offices, the dental offices that are in there. There's eye care guys, and there's a ton of different pieces of it. We went then and started to say, okay, well, there's also some service-based industries in there. There's a Goddard School in there. There's a plumbing store in there. There's a control system, a design system. There's a lending institutions. There's real estate facilities. So the overall development really did a great job of catching a number of the CP2 use zonings uses throughout the entire development. And as you see, it kind of migrated itself kind of all over the spots. I did highlight one in here because there's other uses in there, but there are identified uses in there like the eye care guy at the end. So the eye care guy is kind of one of those ones that's a catch-all on both sides because he's a retail component selling his products and selling his pieces, but also doing the doctor's office with the eye exams. There's other uses in there that do the same thing in some of those doctor's offices that sell supplements, that sell therapies, that sell massage pieces of it. So there's a number of uses in there that kind of mix between the two, but generally the idea of the slide is to illustrate the fact that the retail type components seem to be trending towards the more heavily traveled east-west collector roads, kind of connecting this overall development as it goes. Overall, this is a picture from the site. So this is on the ramp as we're headed southbound looking up to the site. Obviously, it'll be elevated, blocked from some of the area that's setting up on the other side. This is on Vanderbilt, so we're on the north side of the site looking back into it. So the C store's down there, Ralph Powell's on this side over here. This would be the view from the site as we come off of Strother onto Ralph Powell, so you can kind of see this landscape of where we are. This is on Strother looking back to the north, and our site would set up in here. So Ralph Powell would be on the left side of your site there. So what we're hoping to build, it's a 34,000 square foot facility that'll have sales and service located within it. We have 91 parking spaces on site, a training space for all of our new riders to have an area to learn and educate themselves on riding. Rick can speak more to it later, but Rick is also a person who's been in this industry his entire life. He currently has 2 locations of Worth Harley-Davidson up north and the Outlaw Harley out in Blue Springs. Estimated, this facility should generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million annually and continuing to grow from there. Rick expects a lot of opportunities in here from sales of the motorcycles, sales of the accessories, the service, and obviously all the Harley gear that you can add to all of your bikes as you go along the way. The project itself has a general construction budget of about $10 million. Overall layout of the site and kind of the idea of what we were trying to do. Obviously, our opinion is the ramp and Strother are our highlighted areas of where we want to have the most attraction of the building, of the iconic shield of Harley-Davidson being able to be seen. So we've pulled the site to the far point south, basically as far as we can, in order to incorporate that access and that visibility. So there's an outdoor space kind of on the southeast side, generally 10,000 square feet. What they do at some of their stores is on an occasional Saturday, seasonally of course, because we're not headed out there this Saturday, 12 to 5, they might have a band, they might have a food truck, they might have some opportunity to get together, they might go out and do a ride after that point. But it's Saturday, seasonally, very limited on use. Obviously, the 34,000 square foot building sets basically right in the middle of the site, and then as you go up to the north end, we have the Rider Center. So as we start to talk about the Rider Center, essentially it gives an opportunity on Saturday and Sundays only for about 6 hours to have an opportunity to bring 6 to 10 riders. They put them on a small motorcycle for the people that haven't ridden before. You'll see a modification request that we'll bring up in a little bit. The UDO requires that we put curbing on all paved surfaces. Well, obviously, curbing is a potential hindrance for a new motorcycle rider who gets loose. So we're asking for a modification that we'll talk about later that we'll put a ribbon curve that allows that to be a smoother transition so we don't end up having motorcycle accidents out there in the training courses we're learning. The main store and facility is closed on Mondays, open Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 7, and then Saturdays and Sundays, 9 to 6. Again, bike sales, merchandise, and service of the facilities. We'll go through the building itself, then we'll kind of go piece by piece. We can go back to these as you need more. We've listed all the materials. Some of the highlighted materials obviously are the metal panels that we'll actually have a conversation about the modification for the architectural metal panels. The faux cement or the wood cementitious board and cladding on the side, and then the stone. One other modification that we'll ask for later is like we've done in other large buildings, is as opposed to building a parapet around the entire building facade, we're going to have equipment with the bolt-on screening just to save on the idea of keeping this building to not feel like it's a monster to cover all the sides of it. So this would be the southerly elevation, and again, locating that shield kind of in that southeast corner of our site to be the iconic brand, the draw to the site to identify where it is. So if you're on our site right now, you look south, this is what you see. Once we are constructed, our hope is that this is what you'll see looking back towards our site, a very new, innovative building that will draw you to that business park and be an addition to the overall area. On the east elevation, this would be looking towards 291. This is that outdoor area kind of on the east side. This is the west elevation then as you're looking towards Ralph Powell. Again, same uses of materials and pieces of it across the whole thing being consistent on around all 4 sides. And this is the northerly side that we've tried to limit, as we know that our residents, our neighbors to the north, the medical offices, the law offices, the professional businesses, we've tried to limit everything we can to the north side. So again, trying to limit what we're doing, but still maintaining our architectural style. Again, then, our view from the north side as we look off of our site is to the yet to be built apartment buildings, a typical building on that side of it, the existing plastic surgery building to our northeast, and our hope that as you come into our site, you'll have, this would be the access point coming off of, so right here we have a right in, right out off of Ralph Powell looking at the building. This would be looking back kind of on this southeasterly side of the building. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, we had a neighborhood meeting with some of the offices to the north, and the conversation that they had is they would like for us to be screened as much as possible. And we've agreed to do that and add additional landscaping on that north side of our site. So this is, in our opinion, what Vanderbilt will look like to the north. A heavily screened, heavily blocked from view, so you can see our training facility sitting back in the back. You can see the building off to the edge. But again, trying to be a good neighbor, trying to add additional landscaping to prevent and create separation between the uses. So, as I said, we had a neighborhood meeting the 19th of December, relatively well attended as far as commercial neighborhood meetings go. Typically, just like the last one, you don't get anybody. So we had 3 of the surrounding businesses show up. And I think we had good discussion. I think there was some concern on the use. I think there's a concern that their opinion is that the medical office, law office, professional office is the overall intent of the business park. And so we obviously have understood the comment that said that there's, it's a retail CP2 zone district. We're an approved use in that zoning district. So we asked for some type of thing that we could do to try to help that. And that was one of the comments, was the landscaping that we showed you earlier, of adding in some landscaping buffering between the two. There was concerns and questions over the traffic of what would be generated from a Harley dealership and what that would do to the impact of the area. So I'll show you some slides here in a second to kind of go through that pieces. The overall area, because a lot of those roads are private out there, everybody participates in an overall association. And so these guys would be included with the association. They're going to contribute money to the association to pay for all the private infrastructure and roads that are there. And there was conversations and just requests about ride days, organizations of those pieces and how that works. So that was kind of the conversation we had earlier about the time frame of when we're operational. Our opinion, obviously, that we don't start till 10 most weekdays is that we're going to be offset most of what they do. All of the rides that ever start are on the weekend. I didn't say ever, that's a long way. A lot of the rides, or every ride that they're ever getting ready set, are always on the weekend. So obviously our opinion is the time when the business park is typically closed. So we believe it's a very compatible use in the sense of during peak times, we are less active. During their off-peak times, we're more active. So conversations then about traffic. Motorcycle sales is kind of an oddball. So in the traffic manual, you identify it as an auto sales. So if you start to look at the auto sales versus a medical office peak rate, it's significantly less. So if, the point being, if this building was a commercial user, an office type user, the traffic generated from this specific site would be significantly increased. And so what we tried to do is just try to identify the 6 type medical professional offices around us. If we took those pieces based on their square footages, it creates a total AM, PM peak probably seen right now. The Harley-Davidson dealership is expected to have a peak of these 2, AM peak, PM peak. If it was converted, the entire 34,000 square foot building, into an office park, then you'd see a significant increase in traffic to the overall site. So all of this just simply to say, in our opinion and based on the traffic manual, the use of the auto sales is not going to impact negatively the traffic in the overall area. And likely with the development, it could be worse if it had been something on a commercial side. Some ideas just to hear and understand of where we are as well, because we'll talk about this in a second. 291 highway has 41,000 average daily trips in each direction. So about 80,000 cars run down that road. The ramp has about 3,000 cars that run down that road. Strother has about 2,000, 2,500 cars that run in each direction. It's about 5,000 cars that are run by that each day. Ralph Powell is an estimation of about 6,000 cars running through that area. So what we're trying to say is this is a very active traffic-wise area. All of that to say then that we went to the DOT produces a noise generation slide and calculation for the area. So this would be our site, and as you can see, they've got documentation for the highway, they've got some for Strother, and you can see that this is an average 24-hour decibel reading. So an idea of when we start talking decibels, it's the level of sound, the height of sound. This is an average over 24 hours what that number would be. So they're going to be higher during rush hour, there's going to be lower during portions of the day. But generally showing that on Strother, you're going to have an ambient volume or noise level between 50 and 60 decibels. On 291, you're going to have something between 50 and 70 decibels. So again, this coming back to the idea of what impact would a Harley-Davidson, a car, or the development of this site have on the overall area, and showing that we have a relatively high ambient noise in the area. Again, then we're right next to the airport. So the airport also gives off a average ambient level of noise between 45 and 50. And I have a chart here in a second that kind of breaks down what the pieces are and what those sounds are. So the idea of you can start to see is the ambient noise that is out there starts to already fall in the moderate to slightly loud category before we're even built, just based on the airport and based on the traffic demand that's out there. So then I go to the idea of there's an attenuation, so a lessening of that sound the further away you get from it. So I wanted to see what allowance would be is the closest proximity to us, which is the corner of the law office directly to the north of us, which is 99.73 feet from the closest point on our training area. Harley-Davidson, which I'll get to in a point, if we max out the decibel level what a motorcycle can be, which is 80, that's the absolute maximum that EPA will allow to get built. By the time that it would travel to the corner of that building, essentially that then would attenuate down to a decibel level of about 35. So the idea being is that if I'm the neighboring resident and I'm worried about the noise that a motorcycle may make while they're out riding on that facility, according to the calculations and the pieces of it, that level of noise would be classified in the soft level. Remembering then that the ambient noise of the highway and the airport already is above both of those pieces. So this is your City of Lee Summit Code of Ordinances as it relates to noise. So as the noise relates in a commercial zoning use, as defined, all times sound level has to be below 65. So we believe we've achieved that piece. And then on the roads, which obviously is interesting, the maximum allowable road noise on a motorcycle is up to 90 decibels and 94 because some people will add some pieces to their motorcycles at times. So if we go then to the next section, the EPA, when they're building these Harley-Davidsons, so stock off the shelf, have rules and limits of what their motorcycles can sound and how high they can absolutely be. So every motorcycle built after 1986 has to be compliant to less than an 80 decibel, which is why I used 80 in the previous one. All of the training bikes, though, will be a much smaller version, less likely to run or more likely to run under 70 decibels just because of the smaller bikes, obviously to try to teach people not to have these big monsters they're trying to move around as they're learning how to ride. Again, just to kind of be comparison, EPA also has the same thing for new vehicles, which shows a decibel level of 80 for the same idea. So we're almost wrapped up. There's 3 modifications I'm asking for and requesting. Parking lot setback, 20 feet is required from any right-of-way. On the south end of our site, and I can go back and show you if you need to, as we were talking through our applicant meeting, Fire Chief asked, is there a way to create a little bit better turnaround on that southerly side? We created a little bit bigger bubble, a little bit more area to allow for emergency vehicle turnarounds on that south side, which allowed or created this setback reduction. But it is adjacent to the Strother Road right-of-way, which, as staff put in their report, the Strother Road right-of-way is relatively large in that area. So we're still 20 plus feet from the curb line, from the sidewalk line. It's an area that staff feels confident, and we do as well, that by meeting this, we're providing an additional level of protection that the fire chief commented and asked for, so we think is a good use of it. Parking lot design, we kind of talked about it previously. In the training area, we want to reduce that down to a ribbon curb, which essentially just means I'm getting rid of the back part that actually has a lip because I don't need a motorcycle running into it as they're learning to do it. And then the architectural characteristics that we've had on many, many projects. One is on the parapet, and then the other one is on the architectural panels that we've talked about before. So happy to answer any questions you need.
We will have staff's presentation.
Evening, Commissioners. Shannon McGuire, Senior Planner. Please enter the record Exhibit A, list exhibits 1 through 14.
Exhibits 1 through 14 noted and entered into the record.
All right, so the applicant did a good job of thoroughly explaining his project, so I won't try to be too redundant, but again, before you is a PDP. They are proposing that 34,000 square foot, single-story Harley-Davidson dealership. Again, the building will also include an outdoor performance venue, as well as that motorcycle rider training area. There are 3 modifications, and I will go into a little greater detail later in my presentation on those. The property is surrounded by commercially zoned property and uses to the northeast and the south there, as you can see in the picture on the screen. And the property to the west is that PMIX zone property. The Ignite Comprehensive Plan land use map does identify the site's future recommended land use as commercial. The comp plan identifies this land use category to be the appropriate location for retail uses. The proposed use is consistent with the commercial land use designation as recommended by the comprehensive plan. One of the established objectives established in the comprehensive plan is to stimulate that continued economic development and investment by the private sector. The applicant is meeting this goal by developing this long vacant piece of property within our city. In addition to being in compliance with the future recommended land use, the proposed use is an allowed use under the existing zoning. So currently the property is zone CP2 and the proposed use is allowed in that zoning district. As the applicant did state, this is a less intense use and will generate less traffic than other uses that are allowed in the CP2 district. Some of those other uses that could go at that site are car washes, a convenience store, with certain conditions and special use permits, you possibly could get a heavy equipment sales and service facility there. Medical marijuana facilities would be appropriate for that CP2 zoning, as well as office uses and restaurants. So the overall site, again, is zone CP2. The property is 3.8 acres. The proposed building will be around that 34,000 square feet and have a total height of 28 feet. The FAR, or floor area ratio, is that 0.2. And again, they are providing 91 parking stalls. There is a combination of materials on the building. Those include those metal panels, the fiber cement, stone veneer, and glass. Metal panels are conditional use, or a conditional material that does take approval from the Planning Commission and City Council. Those are only about a third, little over a third of the facade is that metal panel, with about another third being that fiber cement board, and then the rest of that third being made up between that stone veneer and the glass and doors, or the glass of the windows and doors. Again, as you heard me state in previous presentations, the quality of architecture metal has increased and has improved over the years, and the use of this type of material has increased, and we're seeing more of it. It is consistent with previously approved projects throughout the community, such as some churches, car dealerships, and our recently approved fire stations. The applicant did hold that public neighborhood meeting on December 7th, and members of the public did attend that. They felt there's had a couple of concerns with regards to the use of the area, traffic, maintenance of the common areas, questions of how the rides are organized, and requested that additional landscaping to the north there. You can see the landscaping plan shows you a good deal about landscaping all over around, and that additional landscaping that was requested is up in this area. So to get into the modifications, The first modification they have requested is to that 20-foot setback requirement from the right-of-way. They are proposing that 5.3, as you can see highlighted here in this area of the bubble. So the proposed encroachment, again, like the applicant has stated, that this is to allow for a better turnaround radius for our emergency service vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, and whatnot. It is adjacent to the Northeast Strother Road right-of-way. As you can see in this specific area, that right-of-way does widen right along where that encroachment is and gets a little bit deeper. It's about 21 and a half feet deep right there. Typical right-of-way behind the curb there is going to be that 11 to 12 feet, so it is about double what the typical you would see. This wider right-of-way does give the appearance of a deeper setback in that area. And again, the modification is to provide better emergency service access to the site. And staff doesn't feel that it will create any kind of adverse effect or anything in that area. So for these reasons, we do feel the request is reasonable, and we do support that modification. The second modification request is to that parking lot design. As you can see highlighted here, this is the asphalt training area where the motorcycle riders will be doing their training. Along this area to the north and to the west here, they are requesting that ribbon curb as opposed to the standard CG1 type curb with that tall back there. Should the curbing be installed per the UDO requirements, this would create a possible risk to wayward riders. They are asking for that ribbon curb so you could ride over it and have that kind of errant vehicle zone and safety zone there. So the remaining site will be curbed in accordance with the UDO standards. So the only modification they are requesting is just in this general specific site around the training area. Staff finds that this requested modification is reasonable, and we do support the requested modification as presented. And again, the third modification is to that rooftop screening. The UDO does require all rooftop screening to be screened by a parapet wall. And so the applicant is proposing to use a bolt-on type screening in place of that parapet wall. With a larger building, building a parapet wall that does encompass the full perimeter is very excessive and not practical. The proposed screening system is opaque and does provide the adequate screening of the mechanical units while still meeting the intent of the UDO. This is the same modification that's been granted in the past, specifically to Coleman Equipment and most recently to the Taylor-Made Landing field house down south. For this reason, staff does find it to be reasonable, and we do support the request. So with the conditions of approval as outlined here and in the staff letter, the application does meet the goals of the IGNITE comprehensive plan, the requirements of the UDO, and the design and construction manual, and I can answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm sure we'll have some questions. We will go to any comments on this application from the public. Please come forward and state your name and address. I did see that you swore in.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Corey Henry. Address will be 800 Northeast Vanderbilt Lane, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64064.
Just for the record, are you a neighboring tenant?
Yes, we are. I represent Chinner Evans and Nail, as well as Hawthorne Properties, which is the directly neighboring property.
Okay. Go ahead with your questions or anything you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wonderful presentation by Mr. Slitt. I want Outlaw Harley and Lee Summit. That's great. But we do stand in opposition to its location next to our office as well as the other pattern that exists. We feel that the development itself is not consistent with the overall development that has occurred in that area. As was demonstrated by the applicant, the majority of the development has taken place north of Strother Road, is office professional, and is very different character than what would be produced by Outlaw Harley. And while it would be a good asset to the community, it certainly wouldn't make sense there, just given the fact that our law office is there. You've got a cardiology group across the street from Ralph Powell Road. You have a spa and medical surgery center immediately next door. You have Wells Fargo Advisors further up. The Veterans Office of Affairs is next door to us. So the development pattern itself, as you move further north, is a densely office area. and therefore this development is inconsistent with that development pattern. Additionally, the applicant had pointed out the closest corner of our building to the training center and the decibel level would be, that happens to be our main conference room where we have clients in every day, multiple clients all day. The majority of our practice is estate planning and wills and trusts and things of that nature, probate matters. We have clients in and out all the time, and conducting our meetings with motorcycles across the street would certainly impact our business operations. We also, after COVID, have virtual hearings for court. We take those in our conference rooms on purpose, and that kind of disruption would just not be a normal thing that we would experience, and not something we would expect. We do not believe that it would encourage the most appropriate use of the land throughout the community in that area just by virtue of the fact of what's already present. We do understand and acknowledge that on the far north side up by Woods Chapel, there is some more dense commercial, and it is a grocery store, and that does exist. And we also understand that on the very south side of Strother, there is the gas station. However, the development in between there that has occurred is situated in a very specific way, and is something that we believe does not meet the pattern that exists. And we stand in strong opposition to the development from that perspective at this site. And we are slightly concerned about trip generation. I do understand the numbers as presented by the applicant, and cannot dispute what is in the manual from a traffic perspective. What I can say is that I drive that every day. I'm an attorney at that office. I'm on Vanderbilt Road, and that Ralph Powell does have enough traffic generation that it backs up. And so we would be slightly concerned of our clients coming in and out of the area with increased traffic from whether it be motorcycles or visitors to the center. Also we would be slightly concerned, although it's somewhat muted, if all of the outdoor event space does take place on Saturdays and Sundays, that's great, but it is something that did raise a red flag to us, and is something that we wanted to be a little bit more aware of and understand a little bit more of, given the fact that if something were to take place on a Friday afternoon, for example, we still have operations going at that time. And so our main comment is that while it's a great asset, I hope they come to Lee Summit. In this site, it is not consistent with the commercial or the professional development, office development that's in place, and we stand opposed to it for that reason.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this? Move to the commission for questions.
Chair, thank you. I was curious about the ribbon curbing. I think it's a great idea to have the ribbon curbing because you don't want the motorcycles flopping up on there and falling over. But it doesn't create any problems with runoff, right? I mean, as far as like you still have, curb keeps water from, so with no lip up, how do you have to lay out the ground around that in order that the water keeps away from the, or is that a concern?
No, you're right. So typically the curb and gutter create a pathway for the stormwater to go. When you get to the ribbon curb side of it, then we've got to use different grading practices to create, basically the asphalt generates a location for that water to go. Additionally, we limit the amount of water getting onto that training site. So everything coming to it, we reduce and limit down so that it's basically just the area that's on that side. So you're correct. It would create an issue if you didn't do some other things to reduce the amount of water going towards that location, basically.
Okay. My curiosity is on your training times. Are those going to be during the day? Are those going to be during the day and during the week, or
Saturdays,
just
Sunday,
Saturdays and Sundays?
9 to 3. Yep, because you try to be cognizant of the fact of typically the buyers that are buying it also work and do other things, and so yeah, we they are only held Saturdays and Sundays 9 to 3, and they limit that to a certain number, so you only have 6 to 10 because there's only so many bikes you want moving around and so many instructors to help with that side of it.
And then this is a nosy question. So will you still have your Blue Springs location, or is that coming to Lee Summit?
Be coming to Lee Summit. The Blue Springs store was a purchase that he did not build, and that facility doesn't function and operate the way that he'd like it to.
Okay.
So the opportunity of coming here and being able to build and create everything he wants on the site, more similar to what he's got up north, is what drew him to Lee Summit to create this facility and close the Blue Springs and bring it here.
That's all I have. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, okay. Board?
Thank you, Chair. I have a series of questions, and like always, I like to jump around. So the first one, you're requesting a modification for the equipment screen on the rooftop. Can you describe the bolt-on screen?
So it'd be typical to any one of them that you've done. So as Shannon mentioned, Coleman Equipment did it. The TM Fieldhouse they're getting ready to build out south did it. A lot of the bigger buildings are doing it. Essentially, it's a bracket that gets built on the outside of that air handling unit that can come up and create that same barrier that the parapet would have had it been on the outside. So the benefit of it is that as opposed to running it around the entire perimeter, we can isolate it to limit the view, the section of it basically to a much smaller area. But it's bolt-on essentially to the equipment.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So now my question is more on the materiality itself. Typically, when I've designed mechanical screens, it's to emulate the design of the overall facade. Is there thoughts to kind of carry the vocabulary into the screen so it doesn't look like a potential eyesore?
Right, so it's intended to be architecturally compatible with
Okay.
the remainder of the site so that it doesn't feel like it's an outcast up there and it's not just a metal thing. So it does try to blend into that side of it and provide the same idea as the parapet would of kind of making it blend away that you don't see the units up top. So yes, architecturally it'll kind of blend in.
Okay. So the noise. So you'd mentioned the landscape, or you didn't mention landscape, but from the corner of the building to the closest to the adjacent building across the street goes from 80 to 38 decibels. Is that what I remember?
Yeah, 35 I think is what we said, but yep.
Okay. So how did that calculation come about? Was that inclusive of the landscape as a like acoustic buffer, or?
It excludes the landscaping and just assumes a distance. So we put the noise attenuation formula on there for everybody who wants to geek out on engineering. There's just a calculation that has, it's an logarithmic equation essentially that calculates the distance between here to there, as you would just like if you yell, it's going to get dissipated as it goes. And so that's all that equation calculates. It does not account for the landscaping that will be there that will additionally bring that down. But our idea on that conversation, that calculation, was the simplicity of, by simple math, the noise of that motorcycle is reduced to less than the ambient noise of the highway and the airport that are already there. And so we thought that was a win. Plus it's below 20 to 30 decibels below what's allowed in this zoning district.
So to kind of add to that, was there an audible acoustic study to determine what 80 is comparative to the 35?
So 80 is the maximum allowable decibel that a Harley-Davidson can give off. Any motorcycle that's constructed, manufactured in the United States has to be less than 80 decibels. So on a safe side of it, conservative world, I picked 80 decibels at the site, at that corner, which if you look at the calculations of a Harley, that is a Harley-Davidson running at above 35 miles an hour, which it never would on the training course anyway. So our opinion is that 80 is never going to get, additionally, the bike they use on the training course is smaller, so it's never going to reach, we're never going to reach 80. So conservatively, we've picked a higher decibel for the training course, remove the landscaping. So our opinion is that, yeah, that is a very conservative calculation showing that we'll reduce that sound.
Okay. Next question. So I see that you have like standalone restroom on the north, I guess it'd be the southwest side of the site, that abuts the potential northern addition of that office space. Did they have any issues with it abutting that property line?
We haven't, so that bathroom facility is something that will be a materialistically architecturally like the building. It's going to be a very low profile piece of it. Grade-wise, we did not, short answer is no. We didn't get a comment at the neighborhood meeting or comment about it. But additionally, this site is going to sit elevated probably 4 or 5 feet above what our event space would be anyway. So visually, I don't think you're going to see it. But calling it a bathroom is what it is. But from the backside, it's going to look similar to a fully enclosed wall that'll be compatible with the building. And so I don't think you're going to feel or notice what it is unless you're in the event space knowing what it is.
Okay.
It's just going to help move people from not having to go inside, outside all the time is the idea.
Makes sense. So is that existing sign on the north already elevated? Or
Yeah.
is it, okay.
Yep.
I must have missed it in the slide. So when there's concern about a band out in that northern, southern, I guess, yeah, western side of the slope, the audible of the music won't be that bad if the site adjacent is like raised, right?
Yeah,
Or-
so our opinion is that event space, again, operating Saturdays only, noon to 5, and seasonally, obviously, so we're talking 30-week Saturdays, maybe a year. We set that stage such that it paces southeast, set in the ground below whatever this future building ends up being the backside of. And so, yeah, our opinion is it's not on work days for most of the professional park, and it's going to be very muted in our opinion of what it'll be, and limited in time frame too. So.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, that parking lot, the parking turnaround for emergency services you have, is that going to be striped so people don't park there in case of an emergency?
I don't know that Jim has made a comment to it. Certainly, I think we're fine putting a no parking or fire in that area because, yeah, I mean, it's not intended for parking. So if we need to put something up there, we're happy to do it. It truly was, like say, the original plan just had a little T turnaround and it stopped. And we
Okay.
just had our applicant meeting and the fire chief just said, is there anything we can do? And so this is what we came up with. So yeah, we're happy to put something down there to kind of limit or to control it. Absolutely, it's no big problem.
Okay. That is all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
want to Commissioner Benbrook?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Most of my questions have been answered, but I do have one regarding the elevations of the building. Right here, the top of that screen, you labeled the metal panels as galvanized metal panel. Is that raw galvanized metal, or is that going to be an architectural painted metal panel? Very top of the sheet, middle.
Oh, that's an engineer marking the sheet and probably shouldn't have. It's the architectural metal panel that we've
It's
talked
gonna-
to that Shannon's allowed. Yeah, so that was my mistake of putting the notes on there of what it would be. But it'll be the architectural metal panel we're talking about that we've seen on
Right.
dozens and dozens of products.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't talking about a raw.
Not headed down to
galvanized
Home
metal
Depot to put the metal up.
panel. Okay. And then if we can go to the site plan, I had one more question. So the entrance to this side off of Ralph Powell, the driveway kind of goes into, almost directly into several unprotected parking spaces. The curb stops, you got some stripes there. Is there any concern there that's kind of a little bit of a wonky situation? Are we putting parking blocks there? Are we doing anything to give a visual clue not to drive through that?
We may. So the idea was, so operationally for the facility, the service bay doors are here, the main entry to the building's here. So our anticipation is that all of our daily people coming in to look at a bike, service a bike, buy merch, they're coming into that building. These parking spaces up here, in our opinion, are going to be, as we're bringing the bikes out to do the training day, let's sit there, let's talk about the bike. Let's look at the things we need to have, let's look at the pieces there. And then that becomes a location that we can easily migrate between the training facility and the main shop. And so not necessarily a parking like on a daily basis. We're heavy parked, we're at 90 parking spaces. So it's more the idea that we'd have a place to kind of set it, do that stuff, and then functionally flow between the two areas. So intent would not to be parking blocks, but I think certainly we could adjust if we needed to.
I guess I have a mild concern about that. Here's the mild concern. Future development, the medical office directly to the northeast of that, right? You get regular customers coming in and out of there. They're going to cut through on that road. And during that time, obviously your events, you're talking more weekends, probably off hour from the people that would be going to the medical offices. But like I said, mild concern, not enough.
No, I appreciate it. It's a good thought. We hadn't really thought about that, so I appreciate it. Because you're right, there is an answer too. There is an access easement over this area, so it is intended to provide access to that future area and also Carnegie up here as well to assist as the neighbor to the north. I talked about Vanderbilt getting filled up. This will provide a secondary access into all of this area coming through that site because, again, everything in this area is private roads, and so that, again, I think is going to improve the overall transportation network for the area.
That's all I had. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tazinski.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I do have a few questions. Matt, can you explain the drainage? Is that going to be sheet flow into some sort of swales that will ultimately go over the top of the curb onto the city streets?
Nope, so it'll stay on site. So we've kind of been playing with that a little bit. So originally, we had put in some kind of pervious stuff, and we had put in some synthetic grass. Rick wasn't in love with that. Water Utilities wasn't in love with that. So we're kind of working back to maybe put a Duraslot type drain in to capture that water, or whatever it'll be. But no, water that comes off that training facility will not just free drain onto any of the streets. It'll get captured on our site, put back into the storm sewer system and directed. But we're still kind of in the final designs of what makes the most sense to create a spot for that. So, yep.
Will this training center ever have tents, additional party areas, site other than training?
No, it's intended just to be training. I mean, the idea, that's what the event space down in the backside is for, is those types of things. You know, and the idea is that you want to keep that area free and clear of anything, you know, from that side of it. You have people coming out newly learning to ride. So I don't foresee it. I mean, that's to say that's the purpose of the events. The event space is that, so it's not intended to be anything other than that.
So can you go, earlier in your presentation, you had a few slides at the beginning that showed the facade. Can you go to those?
Shows our building facade?
Yes. Well, it shows the facade. Maybe it's the next one here.
That one?
No, not that one. It was earlier than this.
You say when? Yeah, that's just zoning maps there. There?
Go for it. Yeah, right here.
Okay.
Those two bottom pictures, you show a lot of motorcycles being displayed on the outside of here. And, you know, what is going to keep, because the CP zoning that you stated is that we can't have exterior. You're showing it here. What's going to keep, you know, Outlaw, great building, great business, love the revenue for the city. What's going to keep them from putting 10 to 15 motorcycles on a Saturday at noon when people show up and taking them in at 6, which is really not what we want to do?
Well, I think that's a conversation we have with staff that I think that we are saying that will likely happen. Some number of bikes will move out, and that's kind of that conversation and comparison we did with your Home Depots, your Lowe's, your grocery stores that do bring stuff out, set it out there to look as you walk in and pull back in. Harley's notorious for pulling a bike out and taking a look at it on their sidewalk, which if you look back at our site plan, you'll see some expansive spaces that we've put some, you know, concrete areas out in front of the building. So the differential we're saying between auto sales or boat sales that are storing cars outside that you can go look at 24/7, we are literally going to be out there for a period of time while they're open, that they'll roll a motorcycle out, like I said, for a Saturday event so they can, you know, show it as they walk by. But as we've talked through with staff, we think that use and that kind of migration is not dissimilar to many other users in town that do a very similar product and don't count as outdoor sales, you know, like at the Home Depots or the Lowe's or the grocery stores. I don't believe any of that's counted as outdoor sales. So it's a similar idea to that, but even less because we're not going to leave it out. It's coming back.
So is this, I mean, is our code pretty cut and dry that that's not supposed to happen and that we just kind of look a blind eye to it? Or, I mean, I'm not even saying for you, I'm saying for Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever. I mean, is that a special permit to do that? Like, can I?
Good evening, Amy Nassif, Deputy Director. It depends on the use. Motorcycle sales is a different use category and talks about indoor or outdoor storage or sales differently than just general commercial does. And so for this specific case, it does specify in our UDO that it says motorcycle sales service, you know, but all indoors, that the sales and service is indoors. Then all that is permitted as that by right, whereas the commercial sales, as I said, in retail is different. They can do like a special event permit if they have like a special sales event, or sometimes they'll show the areas on their PDPs.
Comprehending what you're saying is, could they come and get a special permit for every Saturday to put motorcycles up? Because it sounds like to me that you just mentioned that's not supposed to happen on Saturdays.
I think it's something we would talk with the applicant more and flesh out with the FDP to get a little bit more specifics. They're okay to put a motorcycle or two out.
We would want to understand that tonight.
Okay, then we can definitely just take a minute and have that discussion as well and get more information for you.
And then also in addition, and Matt, you can stay up there, but Shannon, if you're around, with regards to this outdoor space, and please correct me if I'm wrong, do you own that Harley Davidson owner that's up off of, was it 29 south of the airport? That the big one there, it's got the big stage that you can see. Is that you guys also?
Yep.
How many people do you have attend a Saturday concert?
Hang on, you gotta come up here. Come on up, Rick. We'll get him here. Have to do it formal.
Give us your name and address, please.
Rick Worth, 5635 Northwest Union Chapel Road, Parkville, Missouri.
Thank you.
And the question was, how many people on a
I'm
Saturday?
trying to get an idea of, on a Saturday, you have a concert, and I could be completely wrong. You have 150 people show up for the concert. How much parking, has that been established to take into account additional people coming for
No,
concerts?
actually, I wouldn't really say it would be a concert, not at this location anyway. And generally, we would see 50 maybe. If we had 100, and that's at the store up north, which is a larger operation, that would be a lot on a Saturday, yes.
So Shannon, did we take into account enough parking, and maybe this was said and I missed it, but do we take into account enough parking for what's required for the use, plus a concert, plus?
Yeah, so if we're doing some type of event out in that area, the majority of the people that would be arriving would be on a nice weather day, and they would be on current customers, so they'd be arriving on motorcycles and not in cars. So on that particular day, yeah, you would have more than enough parking.
Sorry, he's right behind you, sorry.
Sorry.
Shannon, do you have any concern about parking for an event? And while you're answering that question, also, does the applicant need to get a permit for every time they want to have a concert?
No, so the permit would not be required because it's part of the PDP approval to have that venue out there. Just similar as we approved the council and the planning commission approved the farmers market with the event space. We're not going to seek a permit every time we have some event there. It's the similar function there as well. With regards to the parking, I don't have concerns with that. Just given the ample amount of parking that is out there, and then the events aren't huge. You're not going to have, if 50 to 100 people show up, there's going to be some double riders there. Most of those are motorcycles. You can fit one or two per stall there. So I don't have a lot of concern with that.
Another question is there going to be liquor or beer sales at this event? Is there a permit that's needed for that? And how is it?
Yeah, so any liquor or beer sales does have to get a permit through the police department to do that. They will be required to meet all state and federal laws with regards to that as well.
But your answer is yes, beer, and then hot dogs, hamburgers, just pretty simple food type stuff. Yeah.
And any kind of food permit sales will require Jackson County Health Department approval as well. So that will be all approved through the state and county health departments as well.
That's all I have. If Amy and David could come. Okay.
Can I make a comment before we break to that? I mean, if we're comparing this to Home Depot's a gross offender. They got stuff out front 24/7, 365 days a year. So let's just keep this in context. We're talking about a handful of bikes that they're not going to leave out overnight because they don't want them stolen or vandalized. They're putting them out during business hours, pulling them back in on weekends. Let's just keep that in context.
Amy, we'll finish up with questions and then we'll wrap it up with that. I do, Mr. Worth, I'm going to jump in and get some stuff off. If I could borrow Mr. Worth for a minute to answer some questions, just so we have it on the record and for everyone in attendance. And our studio audience is off the chart, the number of people that watch us on Thursday nights. So.
Sure.
Events will only be held on Saturdays and Sundays, correct?
That is correct.
Nothing during the week. Training's only going to occur on the weekends from 9 to 3. Those will be on motorcycles provided by the dealership?
Yes, that's correct.
So somebody's not going to
They don't
come
bring
in
their
with
own
their
motorcycle.
modified, more than 80 decibel Harley.
We supply the motorcycles.
Perfect. And those are Saturdays and Sundays from 9 to 3 also, not during the week.
That's
Okay?
correct.
My final question is repairs, which is gonna go along with this location. I think Amy and I will duel it out here in a minute. When you say repairs, because I'm not gonna compare this to Home Depot and lawnmowers and tractors, but we had a previous application. You're not gonna take the head off a motor. You're not gonna take a transmission off of it. You're not gonna take the motor out of a motorcycle. You're simply gonna change the brakes.
All those things can happen.
Okay. So this would be a major repair dealership that we could get into. Somebody could bring their bike in.
Smaller product.
An auto repair. It gets a license and it drives down the road. It's considered an auto. So I did look that up. Okay, that's all I needed. Mr. Lovelace, thank you. Oh, and Shannon, real quick. You didn't mention anything about the bathroom. There's nothing special we have to do about a bathroom station on the outside.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
In your presentation, I may have missed, but you didn't say anything about the bathroom out there. Is there anything with the distance that's out there?
No.
Okay, we're good.
We're good there.
Okay.
And then to add a little bit more color to your questions with regards to the timing of events, it would be within your purview if you wanted to add a stipulation to mandate it in the ordinance to restrict that.
Okay.
If that
I
is a
think the
concern of you.
applicant has been very clear on events and training are gonna be held on the weekends, and I think we would be safe to that. Jake, do you wanna go with your stuff?
Yeah, just a couple other questions. We've had some really good ones. So, Commissioner Jana Ford brought up about screening, and so just for the applicant, just confirming that we'll go on ahead and we'll put into the condition for approval that that is going to match, other screening that's, or not other screening, but other material types that are part of the construction.
Yeah, architecturally compatible would be fine or something like that. I'd be happy with it.
Okay, sounds good. Actually, so a question for Corey with Chinnery. So I don't know how much has changed since when you guys had your good neighbor meeting as far as with some of the different things that they've proposed to us tonight here. Obviously, you guys are a fantastic business, the kind of fabric of Lee Summit. And so we certainly appreciate and respect you guys' positions. Want to certainly hear you out and kind of discuss all these different things. I guess, some of the things they're talking about with respects to noise levels and when those noise levels transpire and all those different things, are you guys, do you guys understand now that those are going to happen on the weekend? And how much business are you guys conducting between 9 and 3 on Saturdays?
Thank you. So that certainly ameliorates a lot of our concerns. I cannot tell you we have Saturday and Sunday operations. We don't. Attorneys will go in and work, but that's not, we don't traditionally have clients. So that certainly does ameliorate a lot of the concerns from an activity perspective. And I do appreciate that. And so I think that we would still be interested in hearing more. I think I can say that I believe there was not the landscape buffer against our building originally, and that's been put in. So we do recognize that and appreciate that kind of attention to detail. And so I think it would be something that, I'd be remiss to speak on behalf of the law partners, which Mr. Chinnery and Ms. Evans are here tonight as well. And so I'd be remiss to say that all of our concerns are completely removed. They certainly are ameliorated by given the fact that these events are to happen only on weekends. So that certainly helps, and I appreciate the commission's questions on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So just, Matt, a couple questions on kind of configurations of the site. I'm sure you guys have looked at this a ton of different ways, right? I understand you guys don't have control over that lot that's right there next to the medical. That's correct, that's not.
Right, not
under-
ours, yep,
okay.
it's the medical, so as I understand it, this lot is owned by the adjacent property owner here.
Okay.
And they did show up at the neighborhood meeting.
Okay, but it's not like we can flip the location of where the training facility would be and put that in that location right there, correct?
Correct.
Right. And then as far as the actual training facility, it sounds like that's probably the most contentious thing here. It is the biggest eyesore that we're gonna have out there. As far as the materials for the actual surface that's there, is that concrete, asphalt? Is it a permeable pavement? What are we?
Asphalt at this point. We've talked about permeable pavement, but I don't think we'll get there just because of the cost typically on that side. But it's just asphalt. It'll look like a parking lot. It's heavily screened on the west and the north. So, I mean, I think from a use standpoint, as you drive by, it's going to look like an unused parking lot.
Okay, okay. And as far as the location of it, it's not, I mean, I see that you've got a little bit more space over there right where you're at, but that's not completely, you know, it's not a ton different than the space that you have right there that's going to be the concert area or the outdoor area that you have there. Is there any, I mean, is it a better solution to potentially try to reconfigure some things and flip-flop the concert area where it's closer to Vanderbilt and Ralph Powell for functionality, aesthetics, all those different things?
So the event space location works in concert with the building. You know, so the building has the bathrooms, the bar, the stage, I mean, all the pieces with it. So they need to be together. In our opinion of why we kind of laid the site that was, the training facilities used so minimally, it was our opinion that that being closest to the north side by the neighbors would be the most beneficial because it's most or least impactful for them and most beneficial for the site to function, we think. So that was kind of our idea how we created it.
Okay, okay, makes sense. I guess just, this is a question for Shannon, but just so I understand correctly, if we're going to have another conversation about use and SUPs and all those different things, but if they didn't have the 5 or so modification requests, am I understanding correctly that they wouldn't have even needed to have this public meeting?
That would be a function of, I'd have to look at the original PDP and see what uses were spelled out there, as well as what has been built in the square footage and whether or not they're meeting the substantial changes or going over the 25% that originally approved. So I don't have a good answer for you at this time, but potentially it could have been an FDP if there was no modifications, if they met the original PDP as well. So potentially it could have been, yes.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you. And everything else that I've got is going to be related to the SUP, so.
Okay.
Thank
you. David, you going to run with this?
Yeah, so I think we've got things sorted out as far as what the UDO requires and when regarding SUPs and outdoor vehicle sales, including motorcycles. And so now we'd like to have a short recess to talk with the applicant, and then we can talk with you about that too.
Okay. Can we, we'll go ahead and we'll just take a 5-minute. Anybody needs to use the
Yeah, and you can talk to me during the break too, yeah. Okay. Unless you have a question now you'd like to ask here. Okay.
We will take a, we can leave the public hearing open. We'll just take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess and come right back.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those, and it goes through. It's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape.
Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're going to go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple. Quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982's en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
When the person called on the phone, she said that there was a dinosaur walking down her road. Of course, we had to go out and check that out. We get out there, and it was a big African tortoise, probably 60 pounds, walking down the road. When they walk, they really stand up tall, so I could see why she thought it was a dinosaur. I'm Rodney Wagner. I'm the manager of Lee Summit Animal Control. So as you can see, we get all sorts of animals here. You got some guinea pigs off to the side. All the windows up here are animals that are adoptable right now. Every one of these dogs is ready to go and ready for adoption. And the same thing with our cats over here. A lot of cool cats in here now, so this is our 3-acre lot we have out back. This is where we do all the walking of dogs, exercise. We also have a side yard off to the side over there, so we can let them run loose. They can run together, and we have what's called play groups. Kind of like having a bunch of kids. Here's our vet room. We have a vet that comes out twice a week. This is our Sally Port where we bring the animals into. This is one of our animal control trucks, and we can hold up to 6 animals. We have a lift on the other side to put big animals in. We actually have temperature gauges in here and in the truck to tell us how hot it is. Once it gets to a certain temperature, we bring all the animals back here immediately.
Zoom here, and staff, are you gonna take this with a explanation here? Sure, go ahead.
Good evening, Amy Nassif, Deputy Director of Development. So this evening we did discuss with the applicant, so appreciate the time. And so the UDO does allow for motorcycle sales and repair and display permitted without a permit being necessary for indoor only. So with the additional information and collaborating with the applicant, if you do, we let them know that if you do actually have some outdoor display for motorcycle sales or motorcycle display, there's a different section of our code that gets triggered, and then that does require a special use permit with the outdoor sales or display. So the applicant this evening, we'd like to proceed with the preliminary development plan with you all tonight with no outdoor sales, no outdoor display or storage of any kind. And then we will be advertising for a special use permit with the applicant and return to you all with that special use permit request to address that issue.
We can move, Amy, so the SUP, since we are in a public hearing, I'll ask the question, would only be for indoor, outdoor sales. If they get the SUP, would that allow them to do major repairs on site?
So if you, the SUP would also address the repairs.
Perfect. Any more questions from the commission while we're in public hearing? We'll open up for discussion. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from your side, Amy, before we close the public hearing?
No, thank you very much.
We will close the public hearing, open up for discussion. I will look to the commission. Do you want to make a motion the way it's written? I know we wanted to add a couple of things in. I know Shannon mentioned we could put in the motion the training and event schedule. I think the applicant, Mr. Worth, made it clear there's Saturdays and Sundays. I just want to make sure that the folks that spoke during the public hearing got an answer of that. I know we had a discussion on the screening.
I think just to kind of address some of the neighbors' concerns, I think and because the applicant was very nice and said that, hey, this is when we're going to do those different things, so we don't have any concerns about stating that in here. I think that's a nice protection for the neighborhood concerns as far as when the ride training center was open, and then also when the outdoor space would be in operation as well. And then I think the screening thing, again, the applicant said they had no issues with that. So I think recognizing they're coming back with the SUP, I think I would feel comfortable moving forward with this application tonight with the SUP to follow. And in this application tonight with the conditions that we discussed as part of the motion.
Okay. So I'm clear, Jake, before we move to anybody else in discussion, is we would add in the training and event times in the motion for conditions of approval, and also the screening to match the existing construction.
Building materials, I mean, Matt, you just said architectural materials, correct? Characteristics, okay.
Screening match. David, are you taking a note too? Because I know.
We do. We can read something back to you when everyone's finished.
Anything, Commissioner Rader, do you have anything for discussion? I don't. Board.
Anything to add? Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Benbrook?
I just wanted to say, I think this is a great project. I'm thankful that you're patient with us while we work through some of the fine little details that we are. I think it's a good location. I'm glad we're being sensitive to the neighbors as much as we can. That's all I had. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuzinski.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'd just like to say the same. Thank you for your investment in the community. We really do appreciate it. So appreciate you taking some patience with us to make sure we do it right. We want to make sure that everything we approve is level across the field. So thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just so a question for staff. Do we need to make any amendments to the rest of this motion because of, I mean, outside of the additions we were going to make on the conditions, but something to discuss or to reference that this is going to come back with an SUP?
No on that specific question. I think everybody understands that any outdoor sales can't happen without a special use permit, and you don't need to add anything to your motion for that to happen. That will happen.
Yes, thank you to the Worth family. You guys have done a lot over the years in our community, and we're excited to have you here in Lee Summit. And to go along with my other commissioners said, thank you for being patient with us, and we'll get this right and get it going forward so we have no future problems. David, so you were writing up a little bit for the amendment to the motion?
Yes, sir.
This is Mr. Benbrook, so take note.
Chair, I move to recommend approval of application number PL 2023-0319 preliminary development plan, Outlaw Harley Davidson 3100 Northeast Carnegie Drive, Engineering Solutions LLC applicant. This is where
With an amendment to include the following, the ride training center will be open for business on Saturdays and Sundays only. Outdoor events will be limited to Saturdays only. And architectural screening for rooftop equipment will be compatible with the building materials on the main building.
ditto.
Hold on 1 second before we do that. Saturdays and Sundays for events. Saturdays and Sundays for events.
For events.
Yep. I seen you squirming in your chair.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman, what about the times? Do we need to include?
I think it's bound by their hours of operation. Okay.
That good?
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote on the application, please?
Cinda Rader,
Aye.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Tanya Jonna Ford. Yes. Randy Benbrook,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval as amended. Thank you guys very much. Going backwards, we'll go to item A. Everybody good? Everybody had a little break? We will open up application PL 2023-251, preliminary development plan, Jim Hubbard Insurance Office, 111 Southwest Raintree Plaza Drive, Bearcat Property Holding LLC applicant. Anyone wishing to provide testimony, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you for being patient. You guys drew the really short straw. You didn't know that, and we flipped the agenda upside down on you. Sorry about that. Please give us your name and address for the record, please.
Daniel Finn, Civil Engineer, Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas.
Thank you, sir. Go on with your presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this project is for a new Jim Hubbard insurance facility. They currently are leasing space here in town and are looking to purchase property and then build a new building for their use. It's generally located southwest corner of 150 and 291. As you zoom in, it's that red square on the screen, southwest corner of Raintree Plaza and Raintree Drive. It's zoned CP2, consistent with east and west properties, as well as to the north where you've got the existing car wash, and planned industrial zoned to the south for the existing self-storage facility. When you zoom into the site, this is a platted lot. Access easements have been established via plat. There's cross-access that will be constructed, the new private drive that will extend to the west when the future lot develops. The entrance is located within the platted limits for that access, and additionally, it'll extend to the east when the lot to the east develops. The building's located kind of at the southwest corner of the development, parking in front and to the side, with the trash located in the back, as well as the transformer pad. The site meets all the parking regulations, setbacks for building and parking as well. Landscaping is provided per ordinance. Street trees and buffering is all being met. One thing to note on this plan, the site primarily drains southeasterly. There's an existing underground detention system that has been installed and accounted for this development. The proposed impervious area is less than what was assumed at the time that the underground detention system was installed, so this does meet all the requirements for stormwater detention without any other facilities needed on site. The building primarily consists of a stucco finish with some stone veneer. This is kind of a view looking at from the front entrance on each side. We do not have any issues with any of the conditions that staff has recommended. And with that, we'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Soto, taking up the rear tonight.
Good evening. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 16.
Exhibits 1 through 16 noted and entered into the record.
So just to give you, I'll start by just giving a little bit of a context to the area. As you can see, we're dealing with generally the southwest corner of M150 and 291 Highway. You see the Raintree North Shopping Center that's anchored by the Price Chopper. To the north, off the screen, you have a quick trip to the north on the north side of 150 Highway, and you have another multi-tenant shopping center to the north on the east side of Raintree Drive. Immediately north of this, there is an existing car wash that was it's been about less than 10 years ago that one was constructed. Ignite Comprehensive Plan shows this area as generally being commercial in nature, highest and best use. The area to the south that is currently shown as mixed use is the existing site of a mini warehouse facility. And then off to the south and to the west is residential area, kind of the Chedington and Raintree Lake area. So as the applicant has stated, this is a just under 1,800 square foot, single-story office building. It's on about 2/3 of an acre. As has been indicated, there are existing cross-access easements to allow for the minimization of curb cuts along the street. Up until the point that the two lots that flank this site are constructed, there will be temporary asphalt curb to provide a temporary boundary until such time as those drives can be extended to the east and to the west. As has already been stated by the applicant, all architectural parking requirements of the UDO have been met. This gives you just kind of the schematic in terms of what the building looks like. Like has already been mentioned, primarily stucco with manufactured stone veneer, composition roof, and these are the renderings that were already presented. There's just a single condition of approval, and that is just that the development comply with the preliminary development plan dated November 14th, and the building elevations dated July 9th of 2023. So I will yield to any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you, Hector. Nobody left in here to ask if the public has anything to say, so we will move on to the commission for questions. Commissioner Tuzinski, you got anything down there?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Benbrook.
Yes. Hector, have they, I guess, designated where they're going to put their ground-mounted equipment at?
Not at this point. I mean, typically we'll be dealing with it on the side or rear, but it is a comment that has been made and brought to the attention of the applicant, so they are aware of and acknowledge that there will be screening required of the ground-mounted equipment.
Okay.
So they can do that either by landscaping or by masonry wall.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenna Ford.
I have one question, Chair. Thank you. It's just a graphic thing, I guess. So the parking lot that's striped on the far right of that, are they really uneven like that? Or is that just, is that a visual blurb on my end?
As in they don't line up?
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was curious if there was something special about that.
Just where they have their site
Okay.
measurement.
Just the dimension.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace. Commissioner Rader.
Hector, do they have to have the trash receptacle thing like we have to have like I had to have with the concrete box and the whole thing? And is it, oh,
Yes.
this one here where you're pointing to there?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a whole enclosed area? Because that's required with the UDO now for all new buildings.
It's been required since at least 2001, so yes, yeah, they'll be doing it. Now, if they don't need, if they find that they don't need to have an outdoor dumpster, then the enclosure isn't needed. So we do have some developments that come through where they keep all trash inside of the building. Because in this case, it'd be mostly, paper that would
Right.
essentially be taken out. So sometimes there will be certain office uses where they might hire a service that comes and takes trash directly from inside of the building off-site. But here they're showing that they anticipate the need for a dumpster, so they are providing the required enclosure.
Okay, I will have a question about that at roundtable.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission while we're in public hearing? Staff, you're good. We will close the public hearing and we will open up for discussion, and we'll just start right down there, Commissioner Rader.
I just think it's awesome that he's going to build a building over there in Raintree Parkway. It's very attractive. So I don't have any discussion really. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace?
Same here. I generally don't root for Cincinnati fans, but no, in all seriousness, it is exciting to see some development there. So thank you for bringing this project to us.
Generally don't root for him. I don't root for him at all, but we'll move on down the road. He's probably a Ravens fan.
No comments.
Commissioner Janifort, thank you. Anybody down at that end, you guys good?
No additional comments, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Tazinski, this is all you.
All right. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of application number PL 2023-251 preliminary development plan, Jim Hubbard Insurance Office, 111 Southwest Rain Tree Plaza Drive, Bearcat Property Holdings, LLC applicant.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote, please?
Linda Rader,
Aye.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Bonnie Funk,
Yes.
Tanya Johnna Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval. Thank you guys for hanging around with us all evening. We will move on to item number 7, which is roundtable, and I just have this hunch that Commissioner Rader has something for roundtable.
Yes, I do. Thank you. We have had a couple of projects that have come across with the metal, the change in the metal exteriors. And we've had to make exception for those. Why don't we, can we change the UDO if we're going to continue to let the metal facades happen? Is that something that we should look at?
It could be considered as a proposed UDO amendment if that's the direction that this body or city council is giving staff to pursue.
So where would that start? At CDEC or?
That's a great question, and just some information that I haven't been able to update Hector on yet. We do have had some discussions lately on design and design requirements, architecture requirements. That's something we're going to be looking at in 2024. But probably, like, there might be some bigger overhauls. But what it starts, we're going to be having some discussions probably in the spring, I believe, with CEDC. And so kind of have those on our list already, because to your point, we kind of look at when we see patterns with any kind of modifications or variances, it's a good opportunity then to kind of audit our code and see if there's something we need to update or tweak.
Yeah, it's just one less thing that we have to make an exception for, right?
we'll
Okay.
add that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then my second question is about the trash enclosure. I don't know who wants to talk to me about this. So when a project was done downtown a couple of years ago, that person was required to put a trash receptacle, build the trash receptacle by on the offset to the parking lot. The enclosure. Yeah, the enclosure. I'm not talking very good tonight. And so I guess my question was, I didn't think there was an option. I thought it always had to be that way. So you surprised me when you said that it just depends, because this office just doesn't have, they don't have, trash receptacle problems, anything. They don't have trash roll-off things, receptacles in their, in the area that they are. So I was just curious. I thought it was always required. So that surprised me, I guess.
Right, it's only required, the way it's written is, if you have a roll-off dumpster or just an exterior trash receptacle, it has to be screened. So if at the time that, like I said, if someone comes to us and says, we don't have anything exterior, it's like, okay, you don't have to build it. But if you do in the future, you will then have to build it before you can use one. Correct, yes.
So, in other words, if you have a trash can, like a residential trash can, that would be required to be enclosed.
Now, are we just talking about regular single family or?
No, I'm talking about office.
Oh, yes, if it's outside, it's got to be screened. Either put it in the building, or if it's outside, it's got to be screened. Yeah.
You threw me for a loop for a minute there.
You could, in this scenario,
Teasing
you could have your trash
really did.
off-site every week as long as.
Right. And like I said, some offices, because of the nature of the material that's sensitive, that they don't want to mess with anything outside. So it's inside of the building, it's secure. Okay, you don't need to have any kind of enclosure outside, but as soon as you put it outside, for storage purposes, it's like, no, it's got to be screened.
I'll talk to you privately later.
Oh, goodbye.
It's all good. I'm just really like blown away about that. Okay, but all good, all good. Thanks, Hector.
All right, you're welcome.
The other roundtable from anybody on the commission? Staff, anything? David, nothing good to tell us? You have a prediction for Sunday's game?
Oh, nice. I want this.
I'm thinking, I gotta think of a specific score here. Go ahead, go ahead.
31-27 Chiefs.
I was gonna say 34-27, so
34.
somewhere right in that range.
Chief?
Yeah, Chief, of course.
27 what? All right, everybody's picking the Chiefs. Good, good. Everybody's got the right vibe going. We're good.
They're gonna win. They always
Yeah. With that, we are adjourned. Chiefs victory. Cinda.